We start tonight with immigration and how is it changing the East Midlands? Can the system work better for all of us? They're huge questions to ask, which is why all this week we're taking a detailed look at what's really happening. Who's coming here and why? And what impact are they having? Now, while small boats often make the big headlines, those numbers are actually dwarfed by legal migration. Foreign workers and students are a vital part of our economy. But of course, they're also piling pressure on public services and housing. So let's start with a new push to try and break down barriers in Leicester. Our social affairs correspondent Jeremy Ball reports on how the city is trying to stop people living separate lives.
Creating harmony, a Zulu song in a Catholic school where the majority of children are Hindu. Some pupils here at Sacred Heart were born in Nigeria or India. Falaknaz and Adi both arrived in the last 2 years.
When you be with different people, you can learn about their cultures, what they like, you can understand them.
If I have a friend that, let's say, from India, and it's their birthday, I can get them what they like, and cause I'll know.
My religion is Muslim and my religion is Catholic. I want to learn more about her culture and I hope she wants to learn more about my culture. Yeah.
The school's helping newly arrived families to integrate here too, because parents who come to this country sometimes struggle to speak English. So they're being invited to language classes here.
We have approximately 26 languages currently, and children will be incredibly welcoming. And we'll sometimes hear some of our children who are Black Caribbean talking to new children in Gujarati because they know the odd words, so they'll say, come and sit with us in Gujarati.
Of course, this is just round the corner from where there was so much trouble 2.5 years ago in Leicester. I mean, that must have been very frightening for the children.
It was, but of course we did quite a lot of work with them in school about how they were safe, and they were safe in school and they were safe at home.
That weekend of violence raised serious questions about how much Leicester's different communities live separate lives. In the city centre, we found opinions deeply divided.
They are integrating, yeah. In Leicester, we have got no problem.
There's too many people coming into this country. That's how I feel. Of course, you have your good and you have your bad as well, but in general, everybody gets on with everybody.
I live in St Matthews.
This is an area where a lot of families are Somali.
Well, at the end of the day, I know them all. My neighbours, I've been invited to weddings and everything from them. They're ever so nice.
We live on Narborough Road and just everyone keeps themselves to themselves.
I think because of COVID, we got more isolated because you were put in your own little bubble.
The English culture or British culture, whatever it may be, actually is very hard to define.
So this afternoon at Leicester Cathedral, a new push to tackle those divisions. Organisations across the city joining forces to build bridges. It's called Together in Hope.
The fact that there were these tensions that spilled over into aggression didn't surprise me, because I think I've been having conversations that suggested people weren't mixing. They weren't spending time with each other. They were seeing other people as objects to be feared or to be hated rather than people to get on with.
So how important is integration in a city like Leicester?
Well, it's everything for a city like Leicester, because we're here, we need to get on. I think I'd like to see mixing at all different levels of society, whether that's in school, whether that's at work, whether that's when people socialise, whether that's on the football ground.
Everybody say hi, Shrina.
How do we use comedy to bring people together? Lots of people saying, oh, you're different from me, but we're the same.
That's already happening at Leicester's Comedy Festival.
I was doing the integration thing before it was a thing. And that is Asian overachievement.
Ishi Khan was born in Zambia.
I saw you when you came out toilet. You were doing lots of flies.
Her humour is inspired by migration.
When we're all laughing together, we're not actually thinking about the things we don't have in common. And then after the show, people tend to chat about what their experience was. I've come from an ex-colony and I speak English like this, which incidentally I taught myself to speak like this by listening to the BBC World Service, just so that I would fit in better. So how do you like that for integration, Jeremy? Come. The way to love is to laugh your hearts out.
A brilliant sentiment. Well, Jeremy's here with me in the studio. So, I mean, that is all about integration in Leicester, but there's a lot more to this immigration debate.
Oh, and it is so divisive, isn't it? And so many people really feel their views are being ignored on this. So we're going to start with some figures and show you the big picture. Worth looking at different types of immigration. Now, These are figures for long-term arrivals nationally last year. You might be surprised by the one at the top. 43% on study visas, below that 38% arrived on work visas, smaller numbers on family and safe and legal routes. So we're talking there about Ukraine, Hong Kong, husbands and wives of British citizens too. That 4% right at the bottom, that is small boat arrivals, people who came here illegally. Now that is a very small proportion, but it's a very big concern, isn't it? And a very different dynamic. So we're going to look at that separately towards the end of the week.
This whole thing, though, it is contentious. But I mean, the question is why, really?
I think for some people, it's fear of who might be coming here. It's concerns about fairness too. So, you know, for instance, if you're struggling to get a tenancy or a school place or a doctor's appointment, well, you know, how much is that down to immigration?
Yeah.
On the other hand, there are questions about how dependent we are on overseas workers, from care homes to hospitals to the food industry. And I think also concerns about whether misinformation might be scapegoating migrants for things like pressures on the NHS. So I'm going to give you just a taste of views I heard in Bulwell, starting with Ethan, who was born in Nottingham, and his partner Jenny, who moved here from Hungary.
We're still bringing something into this country. We're still participating in taxes and everything else. We shouldn't be outcasted.
I just think about like the homes and the jobs for the British people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but we're all equal. We all get equal chances.
I know, but I just put British people first.
I think it is important for people to integrate into the societies they come into. I'm an immigrant. For me, a British thing is like the whole like pubbing thing, but I don't drink that much, but I like the socialising aspect of it.
If they're invited to come into the country for whatever reason, I've got no problem. But it's people that come without invitation.
We've got enough as a own to look after. Why should we look after everyone else?
Do you think it affects you personally?
Well, I think it affects everyone, doesn't it?
I mean, you've spoken to so many people who've been looking at this for a while. How quickly do you think immigration is actually changing the East Midlands?
Well, there have been some really big changes in legal immigration, actually, since the start of the pandemic. And you can actually see the trend of people coming to work and study from outside, mainly from outside the European Union. And this is national insurance registration data. And I look at that threefold rise in only 2 years. That includes arrivals on health and care visas, including people's families as well. Then look what happened in the East Midlands last year on the right. Those numbers halved, almost halved, and that followed new restrictions on people bringing families and also which jobs they could do.
And talking about jobs, you know, our economy is still quite dependent on migration.
Yeah, and I think there is one huge tension at the heart of all this, which is that our own population is ageing fast as well. I want to show you one last chart. This is from the last census. 13.7% of people in the East Midlands born overseas. But look at the number of people who were over 65. That's larger. That's 19.5%. Most of those were born here in the UK. And this is partly because people are surviving longer with complex medical conditions. They're more likely to need care and they're more likely to be retired. And that raises another really big question, I think. Have we simply become too dependent on migration? Join us tomorrow. I'll be on a farm trying to get you some answers to that one.
I shall be here, and so will you. Jeremy, thanks very much. It was so interesting. Thank you for that.